Hello and welcome to another Tuesday of Talking Politics in Nigeria. Welcome to Political Paradigm. I am Terry Ikumi. It's now 4 days to the 2023 general elections, beginning with the Presidential and National Assembly elections. Today we talk to the ruling party, the All Progressives Congress. My guest is the APC women leader, Dr. Betsy Edu. Dr. Edu, welcome to Political Paradigm.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
It's finally over. I mean, campaigns, rallies, all that coming to an end. And I see that you've been just about everywhere with the campaign team. How's that been for you?
Oh, awesome. A great experience. Really interacting with people at the grassroots, getting to talk to them, getting to really understand their felt needs, and getting all the support as well as criticism for the party and seeing how best you can address issues as they crop up. So it's been a lot of work, especially the consultations, night meetings, long days, endless rally grounds, moving from one location to the other, the struggle with the weather when you have to land and take off, and of course, the happy cheers from Nigerians that are eagerly waiting for Bola Tinubu to take over the reins of power.
What would you say, or how would you describe the reception across the country?
I think it's huge. It's been very, very massive. The acceptance, the love for Bola Tinubu, his track records in the past that he's been able to fix the economy, he's been able to provide security for Lagos, a plan, an architectural plan, and indeed a working plan that has taken Lagos through the last at least over 20 years. So a lot of people have been very receptive to our party. Of course, you've seen the mammoth crowd in Kano where you spend 3 hours on the streets trying to get to the stadium. This is a road you probably drive for less than 10 minutes. The same thing happened in several other states, Jigawa, Yobe, Borno was something out of this world. Of course, Ibadan, Lagos, and you saw the same love even in the southern part of the country, Cross River, Akwa Ibom, and the rest of it. Was really, really very massive for our party. The support that Bola Tinubu have received, in spite of all the challenges, have been really, 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 really very, very big.
I'm really curious to know what sort of reception you got from the Southeast, which many have described as the Labour Party zone.
Funny enough, right? Or beautiful enough, the Southeast was one of our best outings. We had a huge outing in Imo State, with even the president being present there and given a chieftaincy title. We had an excellent outing in Anambra State. I actually thought in Anambra we'll have an empty stadium or something. And it was jam-packed. And I was wondering, is this not the so-called base of another party? So we've had that massive support across board. And I'm really very confident that we'll have more than 30% in every single state in Nigeria, and of course in all the other states, over 29 states where we're very comfortable, we should be having over 70% of the vote.
Would you win in the Southeast?
Like I said, in the Southeast, there are states which we will win.
Which states will you win in the Southeast?
Of course we'll win Imo State. Of course we'll win Ebonyi State. I can say that off my head. We'll win those two for sure. And for the other states, we'll be able to hit at least
25%?
Yeah.
Great. I'm curious as well. Has there been a difference in reactions you've received from the urban areas and the rural areas?
The truth is, we've got more and more acceptance in the rural areas. And of course, we've seen some wonderful reception in the urban areas like in Lagos, in Maiduguri, in Ibadan, or your state, and several other states.
You know why I ask that question? Yeah. The concern for many political analysts and civil society organizations is that the people in the rural areas are not as enlightened, and perhaps you would have a different kind of reception there when you come to an area where people know what they want from the candidate, and if they don't think that the candidate is saying what they expect to hear, they will perhaps react.
So that's the point again, right? For the smaller rallies which we've had and the smaller engagements we've had very, very wonderful reception from the rural areas. You're very correct. There are two different kinds of voters. And that's why I really try to tell people who go through some kind of analytic review using just the urban areas where you have enlightened voters who are probably educated in their numbers and the day-to-day working class voters. It's a whole different world when you get to the rural areas where you meet people who do not even understand the issues like there's no fuel. They don't understand because they don't even own cars. They go from their house to their farms and back to their houses. What they know is that, do I have fertilizers for my crops? Are my crops doing well? Is the farming season working for me? And several other things. So the dynamics change, and we've tried to make our own campaign issue-based, tailoring it to the areas where we're going to campaign.
It's good. It's good you mentioned issue-based campaigns, because the concern has been that your candidate has not really been having issue-based campaigns, because he's been dropping names. He's been name-calling the other candidates, including your vice presidential candidate as well. The name Gringori is now popular because of the vice presidential candidate of your party, Kashim Shettima. Some TV stations were fined because of the words used by your presidential candidate as well. So it would seem that he has deviated from the issues and has just gone to conventional politics, as we know in Nigeria, which has not been helpful and avoiding matters that are more important.
So there's no single campaign that I've been to that issues that border on those areas in the country has not been mentioned. For instance, we were in, I'll give you an example, Cross River State, and issues around tourism, issues around youth employment, issues around student loan, issues around the deep sea port and the superhighway were all issues that were mentioned. Of course, as part of the campaign, from time to time, he has to respond to some of the questions that have been, or some of the comments that have been thrown out by his opponents. So he listens to his those who have been watching the TV and following what is going on around the nation. If there are questions which people have asked, if there are issues which different groups have raised, or if there are comments which his opponents have made against his person, he will definitely want to respond to them.
By calling them names?
Not necessarily calling them names.
Or using language that is not suitable for TV?
Definitely not.
No, I mean, I drew your attention, but you're aware that TV stations were fined because of his live broadcast and the things he said?
Not at all. I'm just hearing that.
You're just hearing that?
For the first time. And so, definitely, what he does is to address whatsoever they have said about him. A whole lot has been said about him. If there's one person in these entire campaigns whose name has been maligned and he has been given names that he does not even know about. In fact, I wonder if he doesn't look at the mirror and ask if I'm the same person they are talking about. Of course, even before the campaigns started and we started going round to all the campaigns in very close successions and the rest of it, there were several things which I heard and I said, no, this is not true. And for the last 4 months, I've watched through to see if any of such exists. I used to see all the fake things they do on the internet. They will make it look as if the candidate is saying something, meanwhile he never said so. So they change the voice, they do the voice over, they do a lot of things, photoshopping and the rest of it. And I wonder, and I've been through the last 4 months, basically every single day our candidate has shown up from one campaign venue to the other, spends the whole night holding meetings and consulting. The next morning at 9, he's already out, going to the next venue for campaigns. And I wonder, are they two people that we're referring to? Or can Nigerians just know the truth about Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and exactly who he is, that he's a hard worker, that has compassion for the people, and is truly ready to fix Nigeria the way he did in Lagos State?
Beyond civil society organizations who are drawing attention to these non-issue based campaigns, I came across a video of a northerner, I think he's from Kano, and he says that your candidate cannot win in the north. And his reason is simple, that it's not clear what exactly he plans to help the north with. He drew attention to the rally in Kano, where your candidate showed up for the rally. I mean, Kano, the second largest voting bloc in the country, and all he said was he just wants to dance. So he didn't address the people, he didn't make promises, or he didn't tell them his plans for them.
So 2 things I want to say. We were in Kano for 3 days earlier, went back to Kano for another 3 days. If there is one state our presidential candidates have visited the most since we started this entire process, it's Kano. A couple of days back, we're still in Kano. There is no group, no sector that we have not had meetings with. Some running into 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. Name it, religious groups, name it, whatever. Traders, market association, any name you call it. We've even gone house by house, meeting with people, discussing, engaging people, and seeking for their support, telling them exactly what we hope to do in Kano. And if you recall that day, there were several speeches that were being made, including the one of the vice, and of course our candidates. And we told them the things which we want to do for Kano State.
No, I think you're missing the point. The point I made is it was your candidate that they came to hear from. He showed up at the rally and said he just wants to dance. And I'm drawing your attention to a voter. It may sound like just one voter, but to an extent, he may be speaking the minds of some other people in Kano or northerners. And they say that doesn't tell them that this man has plans for them. So is it justifiable that you say you've had several meetings with other people and so it's okay to come up to a rally?
If you were at the Kano rally, one thing you would know and realize that if we spent more time in that space, there would be stampede. There were rallies, I would remind you of the one which we had in Ibadan. We stepped into the arena. The arena was almost like there was going to be stampede in 5 minutes. The same thing happened in Niger. He came on stage, he said, thank you, thank you, thank you. And he had to leave. The same thing happened in Ibadan. Wherever you have a mammoth crowd that is already fully congested, we try not to do more than 5 minutes on that stage. The reason being that you do not want to lose lives because you want to stand there telling long stories while people are dead. So once you come, just like we had in Kano, where we had mammoth crowd and there was already going to be stampede, you need to leave so that they don't keep cheering, and in the process of cheering, they begin to kill themselves. You don't want to lose lives.
So him not saying anything in some of the rallies,
he has
was due to security concerns.
No, not security, stampede.
That's a security concern.
So for the individuals who are watching him, for safety, safety is the word, safety concerns. So where you have that, there was no space between one individual and the next. And if you're in that space for 5 more minutes, of course they are happy, they are cheering, they are screaming, Asiwaju, Jagaban, and the rest of it. The best you can do is to say thank you and try to leave that venue. We've done it in several instances, and it's not because he doesn't want to take his time and give all the long rundown of what he will do. He has done it in several other northern states. What he will do for the north, what he will do for Kano. But in that situation, you put the value of lives against what you want to say, and you simply say thank you, take a bow, and walk out of that point.
We'll stay with the rallies for a little longer. I'm sure you are familiar with what happened in Rivers State and how people have been reacting to it, that a 2-term governor of Lagos State, who wants to be president now, would raise his hands, staff in hand, during the national anthem and had to be corrected by another former governor, Adams Oshomola.
So 2 things, I'm sure if you watch that video very clearly, right? Someone was still speaking and the crowd was still cheering. And that's what he was responding to when the national anthem started. So these have been issues with, sometimes we have the DJ being proactive or been too hand-itching.
So you say he didn't hear the national anthem?
So he did not. Of course, they started playing the national anthem while they were still talking. So he believed that person was acting in error, while the people who were already on stage talking and cheering were still talking.
I'm saying you're saying that he did not hear the national anthem.
No, he felt the DJ was acting in error.
Was playing the anthem in error.
In error. We've had several instances where you're in the middle of a speech and then suddenly the national anthem goes on.
Well, you know,
and then they call the DJ, can you turn off the national anthem? We're not there yet. We are still giving a speech.
Well, you know, that's questionable. That's questionable because everyone around him heard the anthem and stood attention.
But I'm sure if you listen to the video, you heard someone still speaking, right? So that person who was speaking was still holding the floor and talking when the DJ went on with the national anthem. And of course, he believed, just as that happened in some other situations where the national anthem in the middle, in fact, sometimes the president has not even spoken. I remember one of the states, the president had not even spoken when mistakenly the DJ took off, put on the national anthem. I think that was in error. And then everybody had to quickly say, what's going on with you? And then he switched it off. And the person who was speaking continued speaking. So we've had those kind of back and forth before now.
Very well. Then let's talk about campaigns beyond the All Progressives Congress now. Politicians like yourself are a little surprised at the numbers that the Labour Party is pulling. It's unprecedented, isn't it? Is that a concern for your party?
So first, I'm not surprised. And secondly, most of those numbers, to be very honest with you, especially when you look at the social media where you have a lot of noise going on around the candidates of the Labour Party, most of it are not organic. So they are all like you can find one person having 10, 20, 50, 100 Twitter handles. Okay. And using the same to make comments under... No,
I'm talking about the rallies, the crowd at the rallies.
Oh, I have not really noticed crowd at the rallies, right? The few rallies which I've watched have been basically empty. I saw the one in Ekiti, there was basically no one at the stadium. Even the one in Lagos, the stadium was not full. The few I've been able to watch, because trust me, I've also been on the road doing our own rallies. So the very few I've been able to watch, maybe 10 o'clock news, I see them show some of it or something like that. They've basically been really very empty. But of course, he has some strong base. I think the one which they held in, was it Anambra or one of the states in the east, was quite good. That's basically... How
about Lagos?
Lagos was empty.
The Labour Party points to the streets and the street attention that Mr. Peter Obi got.
Oh, that was in Alaba Market. You would not expect anything less in Alaba Market. That's basically a place where you have all Igbos selling different things in Alaba Market. So if you drive to an Alaba Market as a PTOB, you expect to have that, right? But the rest of Lagos, you will not see that. Right? And even at the stadium where the main event held, there was nothing.
The Labour Party says that the All Progressives Congress is afraid. And that is perhaps the reason why some of the Labour Party members were attacked in Lagos State. How do you react to that?
I would never imagine that any APC member will attack a Labour Party member for any reason. We're miles ahead. We are miles ahead. This is a Nigerian election that is for the entire country. And the Constitution is very clear on what you need to have to be elected as president. We are in no way around the same corridor.
Well, then there have been 3 polls. ANAP and NOI have conducted 3 polls. Those 3 polls put Peter Obi in the lead. Are you not concerned about that?
I'm not. The polls don't trip me anymore. I'm not really carried away by polls, right? Of course, you watch the Kenyan election, and there were polls social media, everybody said, oh, this guy was the winner, this guy was going to win. And then the elections held and he didn't even come second. He came far third. And I'm like, really? So for the polls and all of those, right? If you go behind the scenes, you know that a lot of this has been influenced, right? And so for me, I take them with a pinch of salt. I rather want to look at what's the real-time situation on the ground in the various villages, in the different local government areas, in the different states. What are their structures? What's the stakeholders? In my village, I'll give you an example. In my state, I don't know if they have up to 3 candidates running under that party in my state. Right? In my village, there's nothing like that. In my local government, there's nothing like Labour Party. They don't even have an office. They don't even have a space. So I begin to wonder who is going to come and manage the structure in my local government, in my ward. How are they going to do it? So I'm waiting to see. I've waited all the way to this point. I thought at some point I'll begin to see it. I was there 2 weeks ago, and the same story that was there a year ago is the same story today. So, and this is just my own place in the South. We're not talking of core north where you have places like Conjuga and all of those places where they don't even have any presence at all. It's a Nigerian election, and it requires that generality, that acceptability across board.
So you condemn the ANAP polls that put Peter Obi in the lead?
I say this very clearly. We'll take the polls with a pinch of salt.
Will you also take the polls that put Asiwaju Tinubu in the lead, the National Human Rights Community poll, with a pinch of salt?
Again, I say I'm not a fan of polls. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will win this election. He will. He's done a lot of work at the grassroots, consultations, engagement. There is no other candidate that have come close to the work which he has done. However, for the polls, I take them with a pinch of salt. And the reason why I say so, because they're not real-time, rural-based. They do not reflect what is on the ground in most cases. In some cases, they might be correct. In some cases, they come close to it. But in the generality of it, I want to believe that Nigeria as a country is far, far more than what they reflect.
Are you not concerned about the PDP presidential candidate? He's been in this race a number of times. He's gone head-to-head with perhaps the strongest person that the APC would have been able to put forward at the time, President Muhammadu Buhari, and gathered some 11 million votes. That's something, isn't it? Plus to mention that there are concerns that the North may be voting along ethnic lines, which would favor him.
So this is very clear already. Northerners are straightforward people. If the North would vote for someone, you will know that way beyond 4 weeks to the election. If they'll do so, you will know. First, in his party, he's not able to put the party together. I'm sure you've heard, it's not news anymore, about the G5, right? And other people who are not even part of the G5, but they have said they are voting for justice, equity, and rotation of power to the South. They've been very clear on it. Most of them have given their words. Some of them have been fully behind our presidential candidates in APC. So,
which ones?
If you don't even have the backing of your party, I'll give you an example of my state. He came for a rally in my state, and the candidates of his party in my state did not even show up at the rally. The stadium was completely empty. In that kind of a situation, where do you go to from there? So for everything, he doesn't cause any scare whatsoever. Northerners are straight people. Northerners, you know where they will go weeks before the elections. They make up their minds and they follow all the way. And that's one thing I love about their politics. If they're for you, they're for you. If they're not for you, they're not for you. And you know that before the time is up.
You mentioned the G5 governors. One of them isn't clear on where he stands yet. At least he hasn't openly said that. We've heard the rumors. We've heard perhaps what seems like truth, but not clear. But you would know. You're a member of the National Working Committee and you're a member of the PCC as well. Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has had a couple of meetings with your candidates. quite recently they had one as well, and he's not said who he wants to support, but the news is that he's chosen to support the All Progressives Congress. Is that true?
So I'll say this again, and I'll repeat myself. They have said they stand for equity, fairness, justice, rotation of power to the South. And they have made it very, very clear.
They who?
That's Governor Wike and the G5 governors, that they would not be voting for their party presidential candidate. Mm-hmm. That's on the table. I'm sure they made that statement.
Bola Tinubu is not the only candidate from the South, is he?
Oh, great, he's not. However, when we visited the last time at River State, he was very clear. The governor said our candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is a great person. He's worked hard for democracy. He's worked hard for Nigeria. And is one who Nigeria should actually look forward to us having as their president.
So that means that he is going to work for the All Progressives Congress presidential candidate.
We're hopeful.
You have that on good authority, or you're hopeful?
We are hopeful that he would work for our party, APC. He has openly made very wonderful comments about our presidential candidate, and he has been very supportive through the process. So we are confident that will be his choice as he goes into the polls in a few hours from now.
One of the things you pointed at when you were talking about the PDP presidential candidate is that his party is in disarray. It would seem that your party is as well, especially in recent days following this CBN currency swap policy.
Well, I think we have to, at this point, separate governance from politics. There is no single issue with my party. Of course, I know you already know that last weekend, all the governors who are all together, they all met with the chairman of the party and the party structures. And we have all met with our candidate. And everyone, even the leader of the party in the country, the President Muhammadu Buhari, we are all on the same page. Of course, you've seen him in over 7 rallies carrying the hand of our candidate up to say, this is the next president of Nigeria. This is the incoming president of Nigeria. He said it not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, right? That shows you that we are all together as a political party. However, there have been a policy on the table which is ill-timed, and the duration for implementation is equally not okay for Nigerians and not okay for us, even as party members, not okay for us, even as a candidate and the rest of it. We have spoken up to say, no, this timing should be increased, because if you go through the history of any country which has done a swap for their currency, whether it's in the UK or it's in the US or name it, it happens, and it's okay for that to happen, right? The only concern is that it has to be at least for a year, so that gradually this currency would phase out while the new one would take dominance all across the country. In this country before now, we've had a Naira swap. When we had the 100-year celebration, the centenary celebration, we changed the 100 Naira note and brought out the centenary note, right? And it took about a year. But today we no longer have the old one. Some people cannot even remember what the old one looks like. And we have a new note. So what's the hurry to get this done in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 3 months or 2 months? And aside that, the Constitution of Nigeria is very clear on the fact that whenever you bring that back, it still remains a legal tender.
No. Just a second. There is no part of the Constitution that says that what you've said is true. Section 23 of the CBN Act, which you're trying to quote, says that it would cease to be a legal tender. Yeah. However, it could be redeemed upon demand.
That's the point I'm trying to state. That whenever you return it, it can be redeemed with the same value.
But your party is insisting on it remaining a legal tender.
So the point my party is insisting on is that the less than 3 months window to swap the naira is not enough. That's what we're saying. You can change the naira note. You can make it as beautiful as you want it to be. That's not an issue for my party. What we're saying is that if you go through the history books and you read through, you will know that it takes minimum of 12 months to have that turnaround for any currency swap anywhere in the world, and we're not different. Minus that, we are the largest black nation in the world. We have a population of over 200 million people. So you would not expect that to happen in 2 days. It doesn't work that way. Doing that would only put untold pain on the masses, and that's why the party say no, increase the time limit. That's all. You can swap whatever naira you want. Just ensure that the window given for people to be able to do that swap and that turnaround is big enough. That's all.
Well, then that also sort of affirms the concerns of many that your party is divided. And the reason is names have been called. One of them is the Attorney General who tried to run for governor on the platform of the All Progressives Congress. He's a member of your party. The president is the leader of your party. These policies that you say we should separate governance from politics are sort of intertwined because it's the same party. So your party, some members of your party say this policy is not helpful at this moment. The president has insisted and has said 200 naira will suffice for now. Does that not suggest division in your party?
Of course not. There's nobody, again I'll state it, there's been no petition to the party from any member of the party saying we're leaving or we're staying or we're divided or anything. I'm a member of NWC. We have not received any complaints like that at the level of NWC from any party member stating that they are aggrieved with the party and they're leaving the party, or they're not standing behind our presidential candidates or behind our candidates at different levels. We've not received that. What we have here is an issue of a policy that, of course, was sold to the president by the CBN governor. And what the party's position on it is that the time limit for the swap is absurd. It's not normal.
And that's why Nigerians are asking, why is it the APC that has a problem with the policy?
Oh, not just the APC. I'm sure you've listened to other parties and indeed Nigerians as a whole stating that the short time.
No, we're talking political parties now. You say,
political parties.
So which other party is...
different parties have spoken, said different
which
things
other
about
party
it.
is against, is in support of the position of the APC? Because this matter is in the Supreme Court right now.
Several other parties. The PDP presidential candidate spoke about it a while ago. The Labour Party presidential candidate spoke about it.
No, they support the policy. However, they say that the central bank should make the new note available. It's different from what your party is saying. Your party says that the 500 and 1,000 naira notes should run in circulation with the new naira notes as well.
So I think you're mixing the points up. If I can clearly put this forward, first and foremost, the policy is not a bad one. My party is not saying the policy is wrong. My party is only saying very clearly that the time duration for the swap is too short, and so is causing Nigerians untold hardship, which is not progressive, and that's not what the party stands for. So you can have a beautiful policy that is not properly implemented and leads into catastrophe. And that's what we're saying. This policy is nice. However, the timing, the duration is causing untold pain, and so you must find ways to give Nigeria comfort in whatever policy you're doing. We stand for Nigerians. We are people-based. Our policies are people-centered, and the implementation of it must be people-centered. At whatever point you notice that what you're trying to implement is not turning off well with the people, you must be able to take steps back and say, no, let's extend it, or let's make it better for the masses. Our concern is the masses.
So do you think that the president was wrong?
Again, I said the policy is a good one.
No.
Clearly,
everyone agrees that it's a good policy.
Uncomfortable.
But the president hasn't taken into consideration this timing, as you have put it, has he?
Oh, he has. Unfortunately, there's some advice I cannot put out here because this is a national TV, right? He has listened to the advice. He has taken that into consideration. Unfortunately, what they say they have left is the 200 naira notes, and that's why he said send it back into the circulation so that people don't have to go through untold pain.
That's a good thing, is it?
The idea is to reduce the pain. We don't want Nigerians to be going through untold pain because of one policy. It's not an elite thing, right? It should be all about the masses, and that's why the party is calling the policymakers to account to say we have always been about the masses.
What do you say to those who believe that this policy could address vote buying?
Two things. Vote buying happens in so many ways. So many ways. Addressing only one of it to cause pain does not address it. It doesn't. And the truth of the matter is, somehow the elites still have a way of getting the money, the new notes, in their hands. So when you go through this, you know that it's just the common man who might be affected by this policy. And that's what we're saying, the timing has a fault on it. So for us, clearly, this would not address vote buying.
How do you think we can address vote buying in the country?
Good. So two things. First, we have to strengthen the legislation. Good and fine. I give the president kudos, and I give this government, the National Assembly, and indeed the party kudos for really working on the Electoral Act and getting it signed into law. That's one of the things that will be strongly praised for, right, in the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. However, there are still some lacunas that need to be addressed. Some of it around vote buying. So we have to have more innovative ways in the Electoral Act to check vote buying with punishment for persons who would be involved in it. It's beyond money.
Kano State Governor Umar Ganduje is quoted to have said that President Buhari wants to destroy the APC. And some other events, and especially this currency swap issue, has made many question if the president really wants the APC to win this election, or he just wants to leave a legacy of free, fair, and credible elections. Do you believe that the president is doing this from an innocent place and that he supports your candidate wholly?
So the APC wants, the president wants to leave a legacy of a free and fair election. And he will leave that legacy, and APC would win. I'll state that very clearly. Secondly, President Buhari, I know, would not go with you to campaigns. Neither would he carry up your hands or state that he came to campaign for the next president if he's not with you. He can keep mute, he can sit back in his office, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to him. Absolutely nothing. So if he takes out time to be at campaign rallies, I think he's been in over 8 campaign rallies so far, right? If he takes out the time and the pain, in fact, there were rallies that he was going back to back. The Adamawa, we had just finished Adamawa, and we entered into Yobe. And he moved from Adamawa to Yobe even without coming back to the federal capital. So if he would take his time to do that, it must be for a cause that he believes in. He stated it very clearly in Nasarawa State. He said, I'm sure you don't even know the relationship I have with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He's been my friend for this amount of years. I know him. If there's one person who is passionate about Nigeria, if there's one person who I believe is passionate about democracy and will give everything to fix this country, it's Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He was very clear on that in Nasarawa State, I quote again, right? If he does not want to support Asiwaju, he won't do that. However, you must not take away the fact that beside the king are some persons who may be having a different interest from the king. You can't take that away. And so, we just have to continue to work with our king and work with the party structures as well as our candidates, to ensure that we deliver.
So do you support, since this is your position, do you support the governors who have insisted that despite the president's pronouncement that the 1,500 naira notes will still remain legal tenders in their states? Do you support that?
The Supreme Court has given an injunction, right? And then the final ruling is going to be on the 22nd. And we all, at whichever level we find ourselves, should always try our very best to adhere to the ruling of the court. We should always try, because it's an arm of government which is also put in place to checkmate the other arms.
Many analysts believe that as a ruling party, the APC should ordinarily have this in the bag. But the concerns would have to be perhaps how the APC has led in the last 8 years. In fact, a couple of persons have questioned whether Tinubu's achievements should be what he should campaign with and ignore the Buhari administration achievements. And then recently we heard the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, say that you cannot separate Tinubu from Buhari. They're the same party. It's the party's idea. What do you think?
Both. My answers are both. So, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who met a Lagos that had security issues, economic issues, everything in 1999, and over the years have made Lagos State the 5th largest economy in Africa, solved the security issues. A small piece of land has become a gold mine which he has used to raise revenue over 60 billion every month. And every day they are going from one innovative idea to the next. We have a new Lekki deep sea port. You have a refinery from Dangote there, which is about to kick off. You have the blue lines, you have the rails, you have the buses. Those are strong things which he should use to campaign. If I've done it here before, I can do it at the national stage. You can't take that away from him. And he says this with confidence because those who are running, for instance, the Labour Party candidate, has been a governor of a state. And looking at the state which he has been a governor and asking even those who have taken over from him, you can hear them clearly state how ill-managed the state was. Workers on strike, money kept when things were not done, doctors on strike, these, that, name it. Too many issues just to mention but a few. Infrastructure, almost zero. And they keep telling you, they say even the one company which they had was sold away, and according to them, they sold it to his relatives and the rest of it, right? So he has that right to campaign as Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu on his track records. Secondly, he has the right to equally campaign on the achievements of President Muhammadu Buhari. The government have made some progress in different aspects. Infrastructure, great. The airports can tell the stories. Of course, even the Niger Bridge, the second Niger Bridge, which has been on paper, has been on draft, has been on budget for years on ending. He was able to do that. Several roads which they have repaired across the nation, major roads, even in my own state, Cross River, they built bridges, did roads, and the rest of it, right? This has been done by this administration, and he can campaign on it, right? Of course, the security issue was worse than this before he came in. There were regions of Nigeria that were completely taken over. I was in Borno a couple of days ago. We arrived at 2 a.m. in the night. And we drove happily to where we were going to be lodged for the rallies in the morning. And someone just told me in the bus that, that airport you landed in some 10 years back, you would not even arrive there. That airport was not being used because if a plane is coming, they'll pull it down. They said, look, this road you're passing like this at 2 a.m. in the night, it can never happen some few years back. So these are all testimonies to the fact that we have moved forward from where we used to be. And so Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and APC as a party has the right to campaign on what has been done right. You cannot say President Buhari in the last 7.5 years have done nothing. Well, that's not true. And so we campaign on that. And where we have shortfalls, We are bold enough to tell Nigerians that we will improve on it and will make things better. That's what the campaign is
What are the
about.
areas where you have shortfalls?
Of course, there are a few areas where still needs to be worked on, right? Some of them may not even be blamed on the president.
Will you name them?
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
If you talk about the economy of the entire world, there's almost no country that is not going into one recession or the other. All of this was occasioned by the pandemic which we had. All the countries were shut down for months on ending, right? So you can't actually blame that on President Muhammadu Buhari. However, I was saying, yes, we might have promised this level for the economy, but because of ABCD, we're not able to deliver that. We would do so now, right? And then any other thing which you feel as Nigerians we have not addressed, we will address them. The security situation is not top-notch, but that foundation has been laid. We have started. The infrastructure is not complete, but the foundation has been laid. We've started. The rail lines are running. Of course, the airports, seaports, and all of those things are all ongoing. Some roads have been done. We will build on this as we go forward. So areas where we've not performed up to what we expect for several reasons, we're saying we would do so.
Here's another area where women have concerns, and it's the appointments, 35% appointments which they have sought, which has not come to fruition. And this is against the promise of the president in 2018 when he was running for his second term, promised 35% of his appointments. That's not the case as it is right now. And some point to your party to say if a party is serious, you would know. For example, you look at the structure of the party, you can tell the leadership structure would tell you that the party is interested in putting women in positions. You also had prided in the party waiving nomination forms for women. What's the output? What's the outcome of that?
Okay.
How many women?
So again, I agree with you completely that when you want to see what the results should be like for women, you should look at the party, what structures have they put in place, and then of course other things will follow. First, last year in March 27th, to be precise, there was a constitutional review of the party's constitution calling for more women participation. So right now, as we speak, all the delegates elections that happened around these primaries at the local government and state level, out of every 5, 2 were women, compulsorily as subscribed or prescribed by the party. Of course, at the national, which was the national delegates that came to vote for the presidential primaries, right? 1 out of every 3 was a woman. Our parties gave free nomination forms to women. And guess what that did? That increased the party participation of females in electoral positions across board. Many women bought forms in their good numbers. And today, as we speak, for the very first time in the history of our party or any political party, we have over 93 persons as females running for election on the platform of our party. Before now, in 2015 and 2019, it used to be 1931. That was our best shot. Today, we did not just double that number. We have a total number of 93. And if the 2 cases still pending in court goes through, we should be having 95 women running on the platform of our party. That's more than 100% increase, right? And these are the pictures that we want to see. Unfortunately for us, the 35% didn't go through the House, which should give that legislative backing so that anybody who is coming on board will be able to implement it. But again, it didn't go through because we did not have enough hands at the National Assembly that will be able to lobby for women, for our own various gender-sensitive
Your
bills
party makes up majority in the National Assembly.
But they're not women.
Well, I mean, we're talking of party members now.
So we need to have more women just like we're doing now.
It's almost safe to say that based on the numbers of the APC lawmakers in National Assembly, that if your party voted in its numbers, those bills would have gone through.
So again, like I said, we would need more females at the National Assembly, across even party lines. that would help gender-sensitive bills to scale through. Now, the party has laid the foundation by going back to the field to give more women the ticket to go into the different assemblies at different levels. By the grace of God, if those women scale through, you have more female voices speaking up and speaking strongly for those gender-sensitive bills. And those are the changes which the party has done to see more female participation. But again, I'll just say this before we round up on that point. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has a track record of empowering people, women in particular, and mainstreaming them. In Lagos State, he was the first person who gave a female head of judiciary to a woman, of course, right? In Lagos, he was also the very first that gave the head of service in Lagos State to a female. During that period, he employed so many women. I think it was a 50-50 employment, women and men.
In his cabinet?
No, not in his cabinet. That's in the civil service employment. Today in Lagos State, you have so many female permanent secretaries just because...
But that's the concern of some women. They believe that these are second-class appointments. They believe that women should have pole positions in terms of appointments, first-class appointments, and political positions should be occupied by them if the political structure is structured in a way that it would favor them.
Definitely. I do agree completely. But if you do not have the foundation, there's nothing to build on. So you fix it from the foundation. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu in his action plan has stated very clearly to the women that he will be giving them 35% of all appointments, whether it's the Federal Executive Council or the board appointments or whatever level. 35% of the leadership would be women, and he would keep to it. He's done it before, and he'll do it again.
We're almost out of time, but we will not be able to touch on perhaps all the promises that your party made last year and we're unable to fulfill, but power is one of the important ones. 8 years. Your party campaigned in 2015 that it would address the power problem in the country. We still don't have constant power supply. Why would Nigerians believe that the APC can do it if it couldn't do it in the past 8 years?
First and foremost, you can never compare the power supply we have today to the power supply we used to have some 8 years ago. Never, like the two worlds apart. I cannot remember the last time I bought diesel for my generator. In fact, the generator has been sitting down there idle doing nothing. The power supply has been more and more effective. Beyond that, there have been higher push for the meter and the rest of it, which will checkmate some of the excesses that was causing leakages in the power sector. Right? The foundations have been laid. The power supply as at today is way, way better than what we had 8 years ago. And we believe strongly that it will continue to improve as we go down.
Do you believe that all the Nigerians who are not as privileged as you can say the same thing?
Oh, sure.
That they have improved power supply.
So you have a building, right? You don't arrive at the fourth floor. You begin from the foundation and you build on it to get to the fourth floor.
How much investment do you think your party has put into power in the past 8 years?
Oh, a whole lot.
In what areas?
A whole lot. So first, we'll begin with the solar energy, which was introduced to different levels. I would want to very clearly state here the special presidential intervention in the power sector, which has provided solar lights for primary healthcare centers across the country, provided solar lights for teaching hospitals, sessions of teaching hospitals, especially the emergency areas. It's provided lights for some public schools across the country. These are special interventions that has taken some of the power demands off the national grid power, which is the conversant one, which we know, right? Delivering solar, even to people's houses and small businesses. They have been supported with solar energy. Right? Beyond this, the main grid, of course, you knew where all the leakages were coming from at the different levels. Some of them have been addressed, not totally, but still a work in progress.
We're almost out of time now, but let me ask you this question. The elections are just 3-4 days away. 3-4 days away. And You say your party will win.
Definitely.
Yeah. But the concern for many would be perhaps the fears of a postponement in the elections, security concerns, and maybe how credible or otherwise this election would be. Do you have these fears as well?
I would say very clearly is the fact that this election would be credible, this election will be free and fair, and this election, by the grace of God, would be violence-free. We are preaching against violence as a party, as a person, and for women, we speak against electoral violence because we would be one of the worst hit as women if there is anything like electoral violence. We don't even want to lose our children. Now, for the issue of the postponement of the elections, it's part of the reasons why we are discussing the scarcity of the Naira in the system. We're very hopeful. We saw on the papers from INEC that they have not received the monies for the elections yet. We equally saw last week on the papers that security agencies have not been funded for the elections yet. So we are hopeful that between when they made that demand publicly and today, that they would have been adequately funded for this election. They need to get the INEC funded from the CBN, and they need to get the security agencies funded from the CBN. That way, we can be sure of a violence-free, free and fair elections from the independent bodies that are working on it.
All right, Dr. Betaidu, thank you very much for your time. I wish you well as you go to the polls.
See you after victory. Thank you.
And that's Political Paradigm. Many thanks for your time. Elections come up in a few days. We're voting for President and National Assembly members. Remember that you have your PVC now. Don't allow uninformed voters make the decision for you. Vote for the right candidate. Vote for your candidate, regardless of whether or not you believe they would win. And this call is most important because we need to avoid voter apathy in our elections. Thank you very much for your time. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.